and welcome to the Common Sense Gospel. I am Danny Simmons.
And I'm Kurt Norbit.
And we want to start off today by just saying how thankful we are to God for this opportunity to read and to share His Word with all of you. And we want to thank you, as we often try to do, for listening and engaging in this particular study and certainly the other studies that have been made available on the Common Sense Gospel. Thank you for being with us. Today we're going to look at and consider the crafty harlot. She is known as the Temptress. She is the strange woman. And we're going to focus for this show, we're going to focus on Proverbs chapter 7. And so before we look at, I think, just reading through it, having the conversation that we've had, Kurt, before we step into the study, what's kind of the overarching idea, theme? What's your take home about this strange woman?
Well, as we were preparing for this, it just came to mind the first 10 chapters of Proverbs are really God calling on us to make a choice. We have a choice between seeking wisdom or looking for the temptations to sin and looking for opportunities to sin. And the call of both is presented in the personification of two women. Wisdom, a righteous woman, stands in the streets and calls out, seek my way, come to me and follow the right path. Whereas on the other hand, you have the crafty harlot, the seductress that you mentioned, who in secret is trying to entice individuals and tempt them to sin. And so really that's the conflict that's going on in these first 10 chapters of Proverbs. We have these two women. One, they're both presenting their opportunities to us, and based on what they say and what they have to offer and the consequences that are laid out of accepting either invitation, then we are faced with a choice of what to do. And we find in this presentation numerous warnings against making the wrong choice, what's going to result from that. And I think as we were talking about, we see God's love in all of this too. He wouldn't be spending so much time calling out and pleading with people to seek wisdom, make it a part of you, bring it close and keep it near you, let it guide you. Let that be the light that shines to help you through life so you can see where you're going, not walk in darkness. So these 10 chapters, I think, I've kind of was thinking about, I need to kind of read these every day.
Yeah, that's right.
Because it's a reminder. Here's what you need to do if you want to live. But if you do this, you're going to die. And God doesn't want that to happen. So he presents this for us, calling on us and encouraging us, doing everything he can to get us to see the whole picture and make the right choice.
Absolutely. And that is the bottom line. She shows up constantly, this temptress. She shows up constantly in the first 9, like you said, all the way to the 10th chapter. We see a lot about her. And the Proverbs, the way they're written, or the way we typically think about the book of Proverbs, is one proverb at a time. Each verse has, there's usually a contrast. The wise man does this, the foolish man does this. And there's just instruction, don't answer a fool in his folly, or ye shall become like unto him. They're just nice little package ideas that help us, guide us in our life, and just reminders that there is a right way, there's a wrong way. We've got to guard our heart, because all the issues of life flow from our heart. But in the first 9, 10 chapters, we have more of a flow of thought, and chapter 7 is going to be a place where that's obviously shown clearly. The whole thing is built on this idea that she's coming, and when she shows up, keep my wisdom on your heart, keep my wisdom around your neck, and it will protect you from her. And that is hard for a young man to understand, because he doesn't understand the protect from what? She says she likes me. She's a girl, I'm a boy. It's all making sense. And yet the Lord in his wisdom says, oh, no, that is not how this works. This is the way it appears.
Mm-hmm.
And as you try to justify this kind of behavior in your own heart, it'll even begin to look easier. I can do this. I can really do this. It's going to be fine. She's okay with it. I'm okay with it. And God says, no, there are immutable laws that I have put in place in the creation of the earth that are still relevant. They are still there, and you cannot oppose them without damage to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Powerful, powerful damage. Destruction comes upon you, upon your house when you engage in this. So that's the love of God. Okay, we'll just start reading. The first 5 verses are going to be an instruction to keep the words of the father and mother and to keep them as a treasure. Proverbs 7 and verse 1, my son, keep my words and treasure my commands within you. Keep my commands and live, and my law as the apple of your eye. Bind them on your fingers, write them on the tablet of your heart. Say to wisdom, you are my sister, and call understanding your nearest kin, that they may keep you from the immoral woman, from the seductress who flatters with her words. So this is the warning from Father to his Son, keep my words and treasure my commands. That's typically difficult for a young man to do when his dad's given him instruction, is to treat it as a treasure.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it is an ever-giving treasure. It'll always preserve and protect the young man. If he truly holds God's word that way, it is a treasure, isn't it? And he can protect himself.
Yeah. And I think we were discussing that Solomon's speaking from experience here. Because he gives us these recurring warnings, especially as we've laid out. I kept saying the first 10 chapters. It's actually the first 9, and then chapter 10 he gets into the little pearls of wisdom that we find in the individual Proverbs. But these constant warnings: don't listen to the adulteress, don't indulge in this. Because he had seen the effects of it.
That's right.
He knew the past of his family. He knew about his dad and his mom, David and Bathsheba.
That's right.
He saw the effects that this had on the family: rebellion and murder and rape and just the disaster that David's household turned into.
That's right. So
he's seen these effects firsthand. And so, my son, keep my words. Listen to my warning. Hear what I've got to say. I've seen this, and I don't want you to go that way and suffer that fate. So he gives us this introduction, and then through the remaining chapter, he describes for us this woman, this immoral woman, the seductress who flatters with her words. And I think as we go through this, we see sin in action. Our enemy, Satan, presents sin in these ways to try to entice us away from that which would save us, to walk in God's wisdom.
That's right.
So,
that's exactly right. And we'll see it unfold.
Mm-hmm.
He's sure going to show us how this works. As far as preparation, because for us, we want to make the application in our own lives, and for those who are listening, that we have a lot of men who listen to this podcast, and they need to hear this warning. They need to be thinking about the severity and the serious nature of these kinds of warnings. So we just think about ourselves. Keep my commands and live. And so as a young man, as a man listening to the podcast, am I keeping God's commands? Do I see that as a treasure in my life? And then Solomon, he's going to help us with that. He says, say to wisdom, you are my sister. And that's on purpose. And he even says, and call understanding
your nearest kin.
Your nearest kin. Kinswoman is the idea. Grandma. She is to be revered. She is your kin. She wants to see you do well, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of us who have grandmothers who just are so emphatic about reminding us, be upright, do the right things, be kind, be gentle. Mm-hmm. You're a good-looking young man. You have a lot to offer to the world, but be upright in your heart and in your thoughts. And if you've gotten that kind of instruction from your grandmother, you should be eternally grateful for that. But there's this picture here that there's these women in our household, my sister and my kinswoman, an elder woman who is my kin. It's interesting that if I'm with them, I'm not going to behave the way I do around the guys.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's this really neat picture where he says, here's what you need to say to understanding and to wisdom. They are your sister and your grandmother. And so they're dear to you. You have a special place in your heart for them because of the relationship. You love them, and yet they are two people that you absolutely would not take advantage of. You don't think of things like the harlot when you're with your sister and your grandmother. Those conversations should never cross over one another. So he's even tying that together as well. And I love that. And then he says, now, if you do this, if grandma and your sister are with you, this will keep you from the immoral woman. So I like the way he worked that in there, because she will seduce you with the flattery of her words. So verse 6, we're going to watch her step on the scene now. This seems to be a sovereign view of what's happening, because as he gives this information, he can see her turning street corners. He hears what she says. He's involved in a much deeper level than just a dad saying, look out for her. This is what she looks like. So let's read through it. Verse 6. At the window of my house, I looked through my lattice and saw among the simple, I perceived among the youths a young man devoid of understanding, passing along the street near her corner, and he took the path to her house. In the twilight, in the evening, in the black and dark night. And there a woman met him with the attire of a harlot and a crafty heart. She was loud and rebellious. Her feet would not stay at home. At times she was outside, at times in the open square, lurking at every corner. So the stage is set now. He is wandering towards her. It doesn't seem with any real purpose at this point. He just he's devoid of understanding. He's simple. He's wandering in her direction, and she is on the prowl.
Yeah. He is exactly the prey she's looking for.
Yes.
And believe me, she can see it. Women who are like this can pick out a crowd of men, her target. I don't know what it is, but they can just see somebody and know that, I can get to him.
Absolutely.
My flattering words, it impresses me the mistakes this young man makes. Just from the start, he puts himself in danger. First of all, and I wonder, would I like to be described like this? I'm simple. I'm devoid of understanding. I don't even know the danger I'm going into. He passes along the street near her corner, and he took the path to her house.
Yeah.
Well, he's making provision to fulfill the lust of the flesh, which Paul specifically commands us not to do.
Yeah.
In Romans chapter 13, verse 14.
That's right.
Because you're asking for it. If you don't put yourself in danger, you don't put yourself in a situation where sin can get at you, you won't have to deal with the situation. Plus, look at when this takes place. It's in the twilight, it's in the evening, it's in the black and dark night.
You notice how it gets darker and darker
yes,
as he progresses?
Interesting there.
Yep.
So there's where this, instead of standing in the light of and hearing the words of wisdom calling out in the square and letting that guide you, now this is all taking place behind the scenes, in the dark. This guy is just, he reminds me of like an antelope out on the African savanna or whatever, just kind of blithely going around looking for a chomp of grass or whatever. And he doesn't even really care there's a lion right over there behind that bush.
Right.
Just getting ready to pounce.
Yeah.
And she does.
That's right.
She's all over him as soon as she sees her prey.
That's exactly right. And so those things apply to us. I perceived among the youths, as a group of young men that are together, He is among the simple. That is also in verse 7. They're young. They are simple. You got a group of young men who are laughing and talking. Yeah. And like, as you said, she sees that. She can perceive the depth of wisdom in that little circle of guys, and it's zero.
Yeah.
And so she knows, and also just the behavior of these guys. Somebody's a leader, you know. The rest of them are following. The rest of them are laughing at one guy who's saying whatever. And so she's watching this, and she's realizing, there's my target. You know, that's all of this is happening unbeknownst to him, obviously.
Yeah.
But he is going to be the victim of it, even though she's going to paint a picture that he'll be the victor, that he's actually going to get what all the other guys were talking about.
Yeah.
You know, how can we get this? How can we do this? And he stumbled upon it.
Yeah.
So again, for us, and I think we may have missed it originally, and we may need to say it again, but if those who are parents that read this, you are obligated to sit down and talk to your sons and your daughters.
Yep. Sit your nearest kin.
Fathers, sit down
My son, keep
with
my
your
course.
boys.
Yep.
Sit down with your girls and talk to them about purity, about keeping yourself, about the value of the body that God has given to you, and that is your gift to your beloved when that time comes, and never before that. Because this man is devoid of understanding. That tells me his parents have failed him at some level, to some degree. They did not sit down with him. They did not instruct him about treasure this in your life. Hold these things close to your heart, because your heart needs to be protected. And there's instruction there that must be given. And especially for dads, Kurt, I look for opportunities to tell dads to have courage, to be a man, to sit down and have those real conversations. Obviously, at an age-appropriate time, when you see it's time for the boy to know a little bit more about how all this works, that you have the courage to sit down with him and to talk to him as long as need be, to share these warnings, because he's not going to get it from his friends, who we have just seen are young devoid of
foolish,
understanding,
simple.
and they're simple. So that's there as well.
And it's not just a one-time talk.
Right.
You don't well, my son's 14 now, it's time for that talk.
Right.
No, how many times in these first 9 chapters does this individual say, my son, and then give him some advice?
Yeah.
It's repeated.
Yeah.
Because you have to be reminded.
That's right.
The seductress is constantly out there hunting down her prey.
That's right.
So you've got to be warning your son or your daughter all the time. This danger's out there, and you need to be alert for it.
That's right.
And if you keep yourself close to wisdom, you'll be all right.
Exactly. It'll guide you. And our teenagers are the prime target of this she-devil. We're going to see that she's dressed to kill, literally.
Yeah.
Because that's the end result of this man's time with her. Her house leads to hell.
Yep.
So she is now out and about. She's loud. She's rebellious. Her feet will not stay at home. So now we talked about noticing the young man, that he's obviously simple. He's got some things about him we can recognize that are easy to pick up on. She does too.
Sure.
You know, she's rebellious. The way she talks, she's irreverent. Her feet won't stay at home. She's a busybody. She's constantly getting involved in things she has no business in. And all those are signs of trouble. So for the young man, it's not just every woman you see is the devil. That's not what we're saying. It's she has a way about her. So when we can see that and recognize it, as you said, we'll never go that direction. We'll never go over by her house because we know what's there.
We see that danger.
And we want no part of it. So
there's a lion behind that bush. I'm not going to go graze over there.
No,
I'm not going to take the path to her house.
You can have a little grass, but it's going to cost you your life.
That's right.
In that
Is it worth
case.
it?
Exactly. So now she's lurking. That's exactly
lurking.
what hunters do at every corner. So that brings us to verse 13. And now this instance is where she meets this young man. So she caught him and kissed him. With an impudent face, she said to him, I have peace offerings with me today. I have paid my vows. So I came out to meet you diligently, to seek your face, and I have found you. I have spread my bed with tapestry, colored coverings of Egyptian linen. I have perfumed my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Come, let us take our fill of love until morning. Let us delight ourselves with love. For my husband is not at home. He has gone on a long journey. He has taken a bag of money with him and will come home on the appointed day. And so there's the invitation in its entirety. She caught him. That's what hunters do. They catch their prey. She kissed him, and this must have really just shocked him.
Yeah.
With an impudent face, she says to him. Now, what's the first thing she says?
Yeah. I have peace offerings with me. Today I've paid my vows.
Oh, good. We're both religious.
Yeah. It's kind of like saying, it's all good. It's all okay.
That's right.
No problem. I've taken care of what I need to take care of. So don't worry about anything. And then she goes, lays it out. The attraction of sin. She's offering her pleasures. And I think that's what we need to understand. Sin is pleasurable. It offers pleasures to us. Otherwise, there'd be no enticement to
That's right.
indulge.
Yeah.
But the indulgence in those is what brings about the destruction. So it's kind of like you take a kid and you put something shiny in front of them, and that grabs their attention. That's what it's all about. I got to have that. But it's only on the surface. So, like she says, I've got my bed's all made. It's all scented. Everything's just right. Look how pretty it is.
Yeah.
Look how comfortable it is. How warm it is. We're going to have enjoyment. We can take our fill of love till the morning. So, yeah, it's kind of this almost hypocrisy. I have peace offerings with me. I've paid my vows. Well, so what? You're intent on evil.
That's right.
Does that make it okay?
Jesus says it
Well,
does.
that's how it's presented.
Yep.
We don't have to worry about anything. I check my religious boxes.
That's right.
So that's all good. Now we can enjoy ourselves.
That's right.
And that's what sin's going to do. That's part of the approach.
It gives him some level of assurance that she's not a wicked person.
Yeah, she paid her vows.
This is something that she really, really wants to do. And she's made quite a bit of preparation to get it done. And we need to take note of how many times she says you.
Yeah.
Today I paid my vows, so I came out to meet you diligently to seek your face, and I have found you. She continues to lay down this thing. You're the one. And that's exactly the way this happens. And again, I think something that has to be said, and it needs to be said more frequently than it is that we're not studying a topic that seems to happen out in the world all the time. Certainly it does, but the church is plagued by this very problem.
Yes. I've seen it too many times.
Me too, and I'm sick of it. It makes me disgusted that people get to this place after we don't hear about it until the destruction is set in.
Yep. Yeah.
And then everyone has to come to terms with how could he, how could she, why did they do this?
It's happened in the black and dark night.
That's right.
It's
we
behind
know how
everybody's
it happens.
back.
That's right. And the person is told in these situations, you, my husband, you don't know how bad he is, but now that you're here, and we've been studying together, and you've opened my eyes in a fresh new way. That we're studying together, and you've got insight that I appreciate so much. I've been looking for you. I've wanted to study with someone like you for so long, and here you are. And my husband's out of town for a week, and so we can study at my house tomorrow if you'd like. That progression happens in that very same way. I have got enough religious speak to keep you calm. And I've got enough lust within me to entice you to see how far you're willing to go with this, or if you'll shut it down. Now, the hardest thing in the world, especially for a man to do, at least in my mind, is to say, we are not doing this.
Yep. Well, this is an appeal to ego.
I know.
You are special.
It's
You're
what
the
men love.
I've been looking for you, and then immediately,
Me?
oh, me?
Oh, me.
Really? Oh, yeah, well,
You should
I
be.
am the guy. Yeah. And so that's hard for a lot of men to
Absolutely.
withstand. Oh wow, this woman appreciates me.
Yeah,
She can see what I really am.
that's right.
And then you're fodder
That's right.
once you fall into that line of thinking.
You are done.
Yep.
If God's first in your life and in your mind, and His commandments are on your heart, and she steps into your world and says, I've been looking for you. I know you're my soulmate. You need to hear what my husband's done to me. That those kind of statements are made.
Mm-hmm.
You are on guard. The red flags are waving all over the
Yep.
place. And you say to her, first of all, we can't do this, and we're not going to.
Yep.
And secondly, you've got to repent.
Yeah. You need to have a talk with your husband.
Now that takes courage.
Yep.
And the man who has the courage to say it goes home without
Yep. That's
having
right.
any fun with her.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems that there's no reward for him to take a stand and to do what's right. And yet God says that is the reward.
That's the way to go. Yep.
You have preserved life. Your home is not going to be wrecked and damaged when you take that stand. You have saved your children and your own marriage and the things you swore to keep and to honor for the rest of your life. And you held on to that. That's what you promised on that day, which is why, on wedding days, we look at the bride and the groom and they have no idea what they're saying. There's no way.
Mm-hmm.
The words make sense, but they haven't come to fruition for them. And
Yeah. They don't know what the future is.
if
They haven't
the future was
experienced.
given to them, they would probably pass out. It's too much to handle.
Yep. But
But-
that's you. I think that's how God has designed it. You grow into that relationship,
Right.
and it takes root and deepens and is nurtured,
That's right.
and it's so valuable. You don't want to take these actions that will destroy everything.
That's right.
She's already dishonest to the core. She's enticing this young man. She's appealing to his ego. Her flattering speech causes him to succumb. But she's a liar to her husband.
That's right.
When he comes home, she's going to misrepresent everything she's done for the past week.
That's right.
She's a liar. She's an adulteress. She's not worthy of his trust because he goes on a business trip for a week, takes a bag of money with him. He's going to do his business. He's coming home on the appointed day, so I know when he's coming back, and I'm going to take advantage of that.
She used information he provided her.
So she's using him and this guy
That's horrible.
for her own lustful, selfish desires. And in doing so, she's destroying everybody around her.
That's right.
And we just need to see that.
That's right.
There's no win situation here
No.
for anybody that gets involved in sin.
No. God's law is laid out clearly, and there is no getting around the consequences.
Mm-hmm.
That old saying that you can choose your sin, but you don't get to choose the consequences. You
That's
can't
right.
say, okay, that's
Yeah.
enough. No, paid the price. No, that is not up to you. And sin will drive you into the ground and pound you into dust. And this is just one of these classic cases of how that works. So she's said all the right things.
Mm-hmm.
Husband's gone. The goodman is the literal word there that is used. The man is not at home. She doesn't seem to have even the wherewithal to mention that he is her husband, though she alludes to that.
Mm-hmm.
The New King James says husband, but goodman is probably a better
literally the
term.
man, yeah.
So in verse 21 now, after she's said this, now there's an explanation of what she has accomplished. 21 says, with her enticing speech, she caused him to yield. With her flattering lips, she seduced him. Immediately he went after her as an ox goes to the slaughter, or as a fool to the correction of the stocks, till an arrow struck his liver. As a bird hastens to the snare, he did not know it would cost his life.
Mm-hmm.
Now, therefore, listen to me, my children. Pay attention to the words of my mouth. Do not let your heart turn aside to her ways. Do not stray into her paths, for she has cast down many wounded, and all who were slain by her were strong men.
Mm-hmm.
Her house is the way to hell, descending to the chambers of death.
Yeah, that we need to understand and acknowledge that's the way it is.
Yeah.
You take this path, this is going to be the result. Even if it seems like you get away with it in this life, ultimately, it is the way to Sheol. It is descending to the chambers of death. Sin is going to kill us. We're going to suffer for it in this life, and if we don't repent and establish a relationship, a fellowship with the Lord, we will be destroyed.
That's right.
We will suffer through eternity. There is no way to escape that. And reading about this, where she has slain many strong men. Well, Paul's words ring in our ears in 1 Corinthians 10:12. Let him who thinks he stands take heed lest he fall. That's another weak point. Oh, I've got this. I can withstand this. I'm the guy.
I'm strong enough.
And then you're going to get blindsided.
That's right.
When you just blindly think that I can go into this relying on myself for defense, no problem. Those are the ones she has destroyed. It's the ones who are humble enough to acknowledge I have weakness. This is a problem, a potential problem area. I need to forearm myself for this, and so I need to seek wisdom. I need to go her way. I need to hear God's call on that.
That's right.
And that's the path I need to follow.
That's right. And if not, as you said, there is no way to change the destruction that will come. Mm-hmm. You cannot change that. There's no way to make a deal with everyone involved. Please let me do this. You can't pay people off. We don't work that way. Just the nature of who we are in our hearts. And like you said, the fact that deceit, lying, trickery, even the use of flattering words, all of these things that come from us are that we're capable of. They come out, and they're all part of this process. And this guilt is such an awful thing, and you are guilty once you have, even in your heart, you have started to lust after a woman. You are guilty, and that must be settled, because destruction follows every time. Please understand this, everyone who will ever hear this. There is no way around Proverbs chapter 7. It always works the same way. Enticing speech, she caused him to yield. Flattering lips, she seduced him. So Solomon tells us how she does this. In chapter 6, he says, I'm giving you this to keep you from the evil woman, from her flattering tongue of the seductress. Do not lust after her beauty in your heart, nor let her allure you with her eyelids. So she's got the speech. She's flattering, like you said, appealing to the pride of men, drawing that out. And then she catches him with her eyes. That a woman can do a lot of powerful things with her eyes. I mean, subtle.
They get a right look.
And, man.
I need you. I'm hungering for you.
The flirtatious look with the eyes is so powerful. And any man who says it's no big deal, he's already in trouble.
Well, once again, like we were talking about, you don't need words, really, is what you're saying, to flatter your ego.
No.
Ooh, look how she's looking at me.
That's right. She's looked over herself.
I always thought I was pretty good looking, and she realizes it.
Finally.
Yeah. Boy, what a weapon. I mean, you have cracked that door open.
That's right.
And the enemy's going to run right through it.
That's right. And we're not trying to give ladies tools to work with to do evil, obviously. To me, what is stated here, if the wife is reading through this and watching how her husband can so quickly be lured away because of his pride and how he feels about himself, that she can use that to her benefit. The loving wife, trying to reach her husband or to say something to rekindle things with him, it works the same way.
Yeah.
All he needs to know is that you respect him and that
he needs to be getting that from his wife.
And that's
the wife from her husband.
Exactly. And it's done the right way. It's appropriate. It's God's way. Our relationship grows through that process. And to wives who hear this, they also need to be aware that she's out there. So if you won't fill your role as a godly wife, and you are contentious, and you're bringing your house down with your own hands, this woman's still out there. Mm-hmm. Don't give her room to find a way into your husband's heart. And again, it wouldn't be her fault entirely. This is for the man to guard himself.
Right.
But wives do play a role in that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, don't pick him apart and make fun of him all the time, because someone will cross his path that will say, you are the one I have been looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And you've helped that along if you've been mean to him or haven't shown the proper respect due to your husband as someone that you vowed to honor and to keep and to love for your entire life. So that's part of this as well.
Mm-hmm.
And for the men, I think one other thing I wanted to say based on what he says. So you're going into this lady's house. Oh, she's not a lady; she's a female.
Yeah.
You're going into her house, and the Bible says, for us, we're thinking, boy, I got lucky today. This is all working out better than I hoped.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we think. You're an ox going to the slaughter.
Yeah.
So think of the big dumb ox
Mm-hmm.
who's walking towards his own death. What is he thinking? Don't know,
Yeah.
but it ain't much.
Yeah. This is all good.
So guess what?
Nothing unusual here.
Heaven says, here you are.
Yeah.
As smart as you are, and as many attempts you've made to cover all this up, to get away with this, just this one special time, you are a big, dumb ox. And you are walking willingly to your own death. The bird to the snare, same
Yeah.
thing. What's the bird thinking? Usually there's something in the
There's
snare.
some food.
Right.
Yeah.
There's little bread or something,
Mm-hmm.
and the bird says, man, I need that. So they go to it. They don't know there's a snare there until it's too late. It is the same way. And as you mentioned, Kurt, you're not strong enough to say, well, I can handle this. I'll step into this, and I feel the temptation, but I know God, and he loves me, and I'm going to do what's right. Not if you're making provision
Yes.
for the flesh. That's not how that works. So Paul tells us, do not make provision for the flesh. Stay away. He goes on to say that many strong men have been slain by her. Number one on my list, Samson.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Enticed by women.
Yep. Strongest
over and
man around.
over. Yeah. And no one's stronger than Samson.
Yep. And yet he continually
He
just
fell
fell
flat
prey.
on his
Yep.
face
He walked
when there
right
was a
into that
woman in
snare.
front of him. Yeah.
Yep.
And he never, ever figured it out
Mm-hmm.
until he lost his vision. And then, he was just held as a captive. Obviously, David, as you pointed out. When I look at David, he's a man who was never touched, never injured on the battlefield
Mm-hmm.
in service to God. Can you imagine? All the arrows and all the swords flying
Yeah.
around, and David
Yep.
comes out.
Never got a Purple Heart.
He never was injured that we have record
Had all
of.
that protection.
But when he stays home, when it's the time for kings to go to war, his heart,
He got an arrow in his liver.
that's right, his liver was struck with an arrow of passion when he stayed home in the comfort
good
of his
example.
house. And
Yep.
that's such a terrible thing. Solomon as well, 1 Kings 11, verses 1 through 3, says that he loved foreign women and they turned his heart.
Yep.
This is from the words of a man who fell prey to the same.
Yep. Wisest man on earth, and yet you'd think, oh, he could see it. He'd know.
He wrote it down.
Let him who thinks he stands
That's right.
take heed lest he fall.
That's
He
right.
was a strong man who was destroyed.
Yeah. So the warning has been sounded from the Common Sense Gospel podcast at the seductress, the crafty harlot, the strange woman. She is there. She will always be around the next corner. And our job is to prepare ourselves to wear God's truth around our hearts, around our necks, to bind it on our fingers so that we're prepared.
Yep.
Don't be a man devoid of understanding.
Make your provisions now.
So let's see how much understanding we have with our trivia questions. Knowledge, wisdom. What's your first question for me and for the rest of the world?
Okay. I'm going to look at Daniel's 3 friends that went into captivity with him. We all know them fairly well. And my question is, what are their Jewish names?
I knew you were going to say that.
We all know their Babylonian names. Those come right off of that. But I had to stop and think, what are their Jewish names? I'm not as familiar with them. What
We
are their
just
Jewish
finished a
names?
study of Daniel
Yeah.
here in our Wednesday night class, and I made it. I just said I'm gonna remember their Jewish names because same thing. I knew Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego,
Mm-hmm.
but I said this is worth. These are not their birth names. This is who they are. This is the parents or the name their parents gave them, and I set I made that a point to know them and to remember them. And I did for several weeks. And I hope you're proud of me.
I am, Danny.
But
How good your
I'll
memory.
tell you, tell me the first one. Let's just see if I can recall it. Because
Okay.
I really did try.
The first one was Hananiah,
Oh, man. That doesn't help me at all.
which and I like your point. We should know these names because they're significant.
Yeah.
Hananiah means Jehovah protects,
Oh, man.
and we certainly see that in their lives.
Awesome. So who's the second one?
You're losing points on this, Danny. The second one was Mishael,
Mishael.
which is who is like God. So we'll give you a shot at the third friend.
It's amazing how, it's just, there's nothing there. I can't pull up anything.
Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah,
Azariah.
which means Jehovah has helped.
And he certainly has.
And he did, yes.
Man, that is
Yep.
so cool.
From Daniel 1:6. Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and
Mishael.
Azariah.
Azariah. Okay. I got to get back to that. I thought I had it. I really did because I wanted that to be a part of.
Oh, good reminder then.
Yeah.
And a good reminder for me when I thought of asking that question. Okay, wait a minute. And I had to try to bring that up
Yeah.
and remember it.
Yeah. The other three are said so often that it just,
Yeah,
they
we
end
just
up
identify
dominating.
with that. But that's an ungodly identification. Those are the names the idolatrous Babylonians gave them.
Right.
And it's interesting. Look at the names they gave them and compare them to the names they had as young Jewish men. Those names are in almost direct opposition
Oh, wow.
to what is being said by their names. Jehovah protects, who is like God, and Jehovah has helped. They name them after their Babylonian gods, and we need to remember the right names.
Absolutely. That's well worth our time.
Okay, time for you to slap me back.
Okay. Now, Paul says in Galatians that when there was a discussion over Titus, they didn't argue for an hour about whether or not Titus was going to be circumcised.
Right.
So he was not going to let Titus be circumcised. He did, however, in Acts chapter 16, have Timothy
Yes.
circumcised. Seems like a contradiction of theological application or just doctrine. Why did Paul have Timothy circumcised?
Well, here's a plug for Jason's Bible contradictions class.
Yeah, there you go.
This is brought up sometimes as a contradiction.
Mm-hmm.
But Timothy was circumcised for the sake of the Jews. They knew he had a Greek father.
That's right.
And for him to go with Paul on his missionary journeys and to be able to go into the synagogue and intermingle with the Jewish people in the different places they would go, he had to be circumcised. That would have always been a hindrance.
That's right.
He was not circumcised as a condition of obedience to God.
That's right.
And that's what the situation with Titus was. They were going to Jerusalem, he and Barnabas and Titus, concerning the question of, well, yeah, you're a Christian now as a Jew, but even as a Gentile, you still need to obey the law of Moses and be circumcised. That's a condition of salvation. And Paul says, no, we're not having that for a moment.
That's right.
That is not the gospel. And so I will not have Titus circumcised. But to enable Timothy to go to the work with him, he had him circumcised.
That's right. You've
Not
got it
as a
exactly
condition
right.
of salvation, but
Acts 16:3, the Jews knew that his father was a Greek. And so Paul, again, in order to do all the things you said, that needed to take place. And so he did it, not as a matter of doctrine
right.
or the law of Christ. That was not the reason for it. So that is really interesting. What's number 2 for me?
Well, we know, of course, Judas, in his betrayal of Jesus and killing himself out of worldly sorrow, left a vacancy in among Christ's apostles. And so in Acts chapter 1, Peter looks at Scripture and says we need to replace Judas. So who are the 2 disciples who were nominated to be chosen as Judas' replacement?
The other 2, because Peter gives qualifications. They had to have been there from, from the
They had to have
baptism
been from the baptism of John
Yeah. All the
until
way to
the
the death.
resurrection, until
Okay.
they saw him ascend to heaven. Yep,
So it's Matthias,
that's one.
and the other guy who wasn't chosen.
You're right.
Thank you.
What was his name? Not getting off the hook that easy, Danny. Yeah, you're right. Matthias was one that was nominated, and the lot fell to him, and he became an apostle of Jesus Christ, which, interestingly enough, is the last time we ever hear about Matthias.
Yeah, I know. That is interesting.
But-
And I don't know the second name. There's some misfires going on in my mind today for some reason.
Yeah.
What is the other man's name?
Actually, you have a chance of 3. In Acts 1:23, they proposed 2. Joseph, called Barsabbas, who was surnamed Justus, and Matthias.
Nice.
And then when they prayed for the Lord to choose which one he wanted, verse 26, they cast their lots, and the lot fell on Matthias, and he was numbered with the 11 apostles.
Yeah. What a moment.
So I put him down, Joseph Barsabbas Justus. So that covers all the bases. Sounds like a Roman governor, I guess, or something.
Yeah, he's got a lot of names.
But he was a faithful disciple of Christ who had enough renown among the brethren, or among the apostles at least, that they put him forward as here's an individual we think.
Yeah.
It fulfills all these qualifications. And along with Matthias, now we need the Lord to choose for us which one he wants.
You see in the Gospels that it says the disciples, Christ, the disciples followed, the disciples were with him. John 6, when all the disciples walked away except for the apostles. Apparently, Matthias and Justus, Barsabbas, are still there.
Still there, yeah.
So that's interesting because those guys aren't included.
They were early disciples because they were from the beginning.
From the baptism
and yet
of
we
John.
don't read about them until now.
Exactly.
And they were faithful followers of Jesus all the way through to the time that he left into heaven.
That is very interesting. Yeah. Now an apostle.
Yep.
Matthias. All right, the final question. 1 Timothy 5, we are given a true widow indeed. What qualifications are there for the true widow in 1 Timothy 5?
She has to be over 60 years old.
Yeah.
She has to be a widow indeed. In other words, Paul goes on to explain there is no family to take care of her.
That's right.
There's no one else to provide for her as a widow. Her husband's gone. She apparently doesn't have children that are able or available to help her. She has to have a reputation of good works.
That's right.
To have been a faithful servant. A life that basically puts the Lord first. Now, I can't, unfortunately, recite what Paul goes down the line, so I'm probably going to miss something. But basically, 60 years old, no one else to support her.
That's right.
Has to have proven herself to be a faithful member of the Lord's body. And then the church is authorized to directly help her.
Yeah, and that answer is correct. It's in 1 Timothy 5:9. Do not let a widow under 60 years old be taken into the number, and not unless she has been the wife of one man.
Oh, there's an, yep.
Well reported for good works, which you said. If she has brought up children, if she has lodged strangers, if she's washed the saints' feet, if she has received the afflicted, if she has diligently followed every good work. And verse 5 touches on that as well, that she's left alone, she trusts in God, that she continues in supplications and prayers night and day. So this is a saint. I mean, she is dedicated to the service of God.
She has sacrificed herself.
And she served the brethren.
Here she is. She's obviously not well off.
Yeah.
She's in a situation where the church now needs to take responsibility to support her. And yet, she's helping others. She's serving others. She's washed the saints' feet. She's doing these acts of service.
Yeah.
So, helping individuals as far as she's able to. So it's almost the same as with an elder. There is no accusation that can be brought against her. There's no question on her character. There's no stain that can be that she can be accused of.
Yep.
So she's above reproach as a faithful servant of the Lord. And then fulfilling these other concrete qualifications, has to be 60 years old and basically no family members to take care of her.
That's right. Then the church should bring her in and assist her financially. Very good. You did excellent today, and I am just foggy in my mind. That really is.
Well, in all fairness, Danny just came off vacation, folks, so
That's
maybe
true.
he's kind of...
I've been lounging around quite a bit, and it shows.
Well,
So this show we talked about the crafty harlot, the temptress, the seductress, the strange woman. Remember, as we part ways today, that each one is tempted when he's drawn away by his own desires and enticed. Then, when desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is full grown, brings forth death. This is a law of God. It cannot be changed. It cannot be overruled. When we understand it and we walk in the light, as He is in the light, we are protected by Almighty God. It is His will. He wants you to be pure, to be free from such terrible sin and people who engage in such things. And we should strive to fulfill His will in our own life and to see the beauty in that as we do it. As always, we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for joining us. It means so much to us to have you with us, and we look forward to studying with you again very soon, if the Lord wills.